I don't know about you, but I'm kind of glad to see 2023 in the rearview mirror. 70% of economists predicted a recession going into last year, and even Bloomberg predicted a 100% chance of recession. Meanwhile, our economy managed a soft landing, and while real estate had its own struggles throughout the year, despite rising interest rates and paltry sales numbers, the market overall managed to not only resist falling prices, but miraculously we saw prices actually rise last year. It seems as though since the pandemic, all bets are off, and even the best forecasters are rendered clueless. So, what happened, what's happening, and where is all of this headed? Stay tuned as I break it all down for you. Okay, first up, let's check out last month's sales. We sold only 1,234 homes last month. While this was only about a 4% decrease over last December's sales, remember, last December, prices were free falling, and there seemed to be absolutely no end in sight. Now, if we look back historically pre-pandemic, we typically sell around 2,500 homes in the month of December. So realistically, sales last month were down about half from the norm. There's really no way to spin this. Sales were terrible last month as well as the whole year. Now, speaking about the year, we sold about 20,000 resale homes. Compared to 2022, sales were down 24%. But compared to historical numbers, though, we're realistically down about a third. So from a macro perspective, and put quite simply, we sold only about 2/3 the amount of homes that we normally do. All right, now that we've established that sales were terrible, let's see what effect this had on the median price. As you can see now, we ended the year with a median price of just under $448,000. While this was an insignificant drop from November's median price, the big picture here is this. While we started the year with falling prices, we somehow managed to claw back over $30,000 for the remainder of the year. Now, as bizarre as it sounds, we ended the year up almost 7%. I simply cannot point to another time in history where sales slumped by as much as 30%, yet the median price rose twice as high as the historical norm. But here we are. All right, now let's check in on our inventory levels. On the screen now, you can see that our inventory decreased by 10% last month to just under 3,800 homes. So let's take a moment to unpack this. On one hand, inventory decreases like this every year, so I wouldn't really be alarmed by this declining metric. However, what is alarming is the fact that even with historically poor sales, we currently only have a 3-month supply of inventory. We're down over 40% from the same time last year. So while this low inventory has kept prices from free falling like we experienced in 2022, I have to say that I'm concerned about what this means for this year. More on that later. Next, let's check out housing absorption by price range. We look at this metric to see how different price ranges are performing. The buyer of $1 million home is likely to have a wildly different experience than, say, an entry-level first-time home buyer. The higher percentage of homes under contract, the more competitive that price range is performing. So let's start off with the bulk of our market, homes priced between $250,000 to $500,000. We went from 36% saturation up to 37%. Next, we have $500,000 to $750,000. This experienced a more dramatic 3% increase from 26 to 29. Next, we have $750,000 to $1 million. This increased moderately from 23% to 24%. Now let's talk luxury, $1 million to $1.5 million. Surprisingly, this decreased 2% from 22 to only 20%. Finally, we have the ultra-luxury market of homes priced over $1.5 million. This increased ever so slightly from 17% to 18%. Overall, the market became 2% more competitive. Nothing alarming, but when we look at the year over year, it's much more dramatic. Last January, we only had 21% saturation versus 32% today. So with lower inventory comes steeper competition. Now that we've broken down the market, let's try to take a step back and make some sense out of all this madness. Sales are miserable, the median price is flat, inventory is almost at a record low, and 1/3 of all homes on the market are currently under contract. So what does this mean for 2024? At this point, we can all agree that interest rates and mortgage rates are all but guaranteed to come down. The only disagreement here is by how much and when. Now, if you watched my video earlier this year about how mortgage rates are determined, you know that typically mortgage rates are 1.7% higher than the 10-year Treasury bond. Now, currently, that number is 2.7%. So from just a simplistic perspective, that means mortgage rates should come down 1% without any Federal Reserve intervention. Combine that with 3 Fed cuts forecasted, each at 25 basis points this year, and that adds 0.75%. Now, if both were to happen this year, that would put rates at 5%. While that would be great, I don't think we're even going to see that. What I do see happening is this. Rates are currently at 6.7%. The moment rates dip below 6%, you're going to see activity. That 5% number is highly symbolic. And remember, we have buyers that have been sitting out the market now for 2 years, just waiting. Now, combine that with low inventory, and you have a perfect storm brewing on the horizon. Imagine in May, rates drop into the 5% range, and inventory is still sitting around 3,000. We quite literally could absorb the entire inventory in just 1 month. Now, that's not likely to happen. There's too many overpriced homes still sitting on the market that realistically can't be sold right now. But if buyers do jump at the same time, they'll be fighting over what's left of our inventory. This high demand and low supply creates multiple offers and bidding wars. Bidding wars result in inflated prices. We've seen this before. When bidding wars start driving prices up, more buyers come out and speed up their purchasing timelines out of fear of being priced out. This simply creates chaos and more increased pricing. Now, I know this sounds wild and sensational, I know, but this is precisely what happened in 2012 coming out of the Great Recession. When I predicted this in 2011, people were dismissive because we were so used to being in a depressed market and just couldn't conceive of that level of recovery. This happened again in 2020 after the pandemic. Different reasons, but same hysteria and same disbelief that prices could possibly continue its historical increases. Technically, we still have $40,000 to go before we reach our peak median price of $485,000 set in May of 2022. That's about 8%. Now, is it really impossible to conceive that prices rise 10% this year to beat that record? Frankly, I can see a scenario where prices rise 10% from April to September. If we manage to increase 7% in a year where interest rates were the highest they've been in over 20 years and the worst sales in over a decade, can you really say that it's impossible to increase 10% during a year where mortgage rates are likely to drop 1%? So if you're looking to purchase, timing is everything. We should start seeing fresh inventory over this first quarter. I'd recommend starting your search now and jumping on the right property once it comes up. You still have pretty low competition and favorable opportunities to negotiate. Now, waiting too long could result in both a bidding war, no seller concessions, and ultimately a net loss in lower rates due to the fact that you have rising prices. So again, to be safe, I'd likely attempt to pull the trigger before April when the market really starts to heat up. If you're looking to sell, it's more complicated. The longer you wait, the more likely you are to get top dollar and stronger terms. However, unless you just plan on renting, you'll find yourself on the opposite side of the coin once you sell your property. Certainly in a hot market, no seller is likely to take your offer contingent upon the sale of your current home. So if you need that contingency, you better start negotiating quickly before that option is completely off the table later this year. Well, that's it for January, everyone. Please be sure to like this video as it really helps the channel and it costs you nothing. Please share this with your friends, family, click to subscribe, and I'll see you guys all on the next one. Deuces.